Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into a love story that feels like it's been tucked into the corner of time, warm and quiet, like the sound of soft rain hitting windows you don't plan to open. Imagine this, a little cafe that only seems to come alive when the skies are gray, the mugs are chipped just right, and someone's laughter sounds like a song you almost remember. That's where you are tonight. You're in a world where love doesn't need to be loud to be unforgettable. Where the softest gestures linger longer than grand declarations. And tonight's story? Let's just say it's the kind of gentle heartbreak that makes you want to cry into your tea and then do it all over again tomorrow. You probably won't survive this one. Emotionally, anyway. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is right now. I love seeing the little constellation of us out there now. Dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You first see her when you're not even supposed to be there. It's a Tuesday, which feels wrong, somehow, because rainy Tuesdays are made for staying in. But the train is delayed, your coat is soaked through, and your phone is dead, so you slip into Rue de Lune, that cafe with the crooked sign and the warm golden lights that drip onto the wet pavement like honey. There's only one table left. The one by the fogged-up window, where you can trace little ghosts with your fingertip. And there she is. Already sitting there, she looks up, you look back. And there's that awkward smile exchange thing where no one's sure who should move. But then she says, "I don't mind sharing," and gestures to the empty chair opposite her. That's how it starts, not with a spark. Not with fireworks. Just with warmth. She drinks black tea with honey and writes in a weathered notebook. You nurse a coffee you won't finish and pretend to scroll on your now resurrected phone, even though you keep peeking up. Her laugh is soft, unpracticed, like she only uses it when she really means it, and you mean to leave. You really do. But the rain gets harder, and the waitress keeps topping up your cup, and her stories are like cozy scarves for your brain, about how she used to live in Prague and learned to cook from a neighbor who cursed every recipe. Or the time she spent an entire summer looking for the sound of a bell she'd once heard in a dream. She never asks your name. You never ask hers. And that's what makes it feel magical. Like if you never name it, you never risk breaking it. Eventually, the rain thins. You look outside and see a dry slice of pavement forming, like the world is slowly waking back up. She closes her notebook, smiles like she's been waiting for the cue, and says, "Well, until the next rain, I guess." And you say nothing. Just watch her walk away, the hem of her coat catching little puddles, leaving behind footprints that disappear too fast. It becomes a ritual after that. Every time it rains and you're near that part of town, you find yourself there. Same cafe. Same table. Sometimes she's already there. Sometimes you are. But you always end up across from each other, as if some invisible thread is tugging at both of you. There's something comforting about it. You talk about books that smell like dust and stories that end too soon. She tells you she likes museums more when she's sad. You tell her you miss someone, though you don't say who. She just nods, understanding things you didn't know you'd said. Did you know that in Japan, there's a word, kamaribi, for the way sunlight filters through leaves? She tells you that on your fourth meeting. Says love can feel like that. Flickering, dappled, never quite staying in one place long enough to hold. She also tells you about a woman she once loved. She was all color, she says, and I was still in grayscale back then. She doesn't elaborate. You don't ask. But you remember it. You remember it hard. And here's a weird one. Apparently, there's a cafe in Buenos Aires where you can rent a table by the hour just to write letters to people you'll never send them to. Isn't that perfect? She says it with this far away smile, and you wonder how many of her notebook pages are full of letters to people who'll never read them. You don't notice at first, but you never ask about each other's lives. Not really. Not where she lives, not what you do. It's like you both silently agreed that what happens in the rain stays in the rain, and psychologists, those romantic little devils, still wonder if unspoken love is more enduring than the ones we act on. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. You don't have answers. Only meetings. And the growing ache when they end. One night, she shows you a photo, a blurry image of a misty bridge. This is where I go in my head when I miss people, she says. You nod and say, "I'll meet you there sometime." And she says, "I know." The rain lets up earlier than usual that day. You both leave at the same time. She offers you her umbrella, you refuse. You both laugh. She disappears around a corner. You wait until you can't hear her footsteps anymore, then turn the other way, and still, your coat stays wet long after the rain ends. You don't realize it's become a rule until it breaks, that rule, unspoken, like everything else between you, that your paths only cross when the sky is pouring and the air smells like wet leaves and pavement. Rain is the invitation. The permission slip. The quiet chime that says, you may see her today, but then comes a dry Wednesday. The sky is the color of old cotton. No thunder, no clouds heavy with meaning. Just a boring, dry day. And yet, your feet take you there anyway. Just to see, you push open the door to Rue de Lune, and the little bell above the frame gives its usual tired ring. Inside, it's too bright. The windows aren't fogged. There's no music, only the soft scrape of forks on plates and a hiss from the espresso machine that feels louder than it should. You almost turn around, but she's there. She's already sitting at the table, your table. Her notebook is closed. Her fingers are laced around a cup of something steaming, and when she sees you, her smile is different. It flickers. Unsure. You sit down across from her without a word. That, at least, is familiar. I didn't think I'd see you today, you say, quietly. She shrugs. I wanted to know what this place feels like without the rain. And it's strange, like seeing a dream with the lights on. Nothing looks quite right. The shadows fall wrong. The magic is thin. You sip your drink and say nothing. Neither of you brings up the rule. But now it's out in the open, like an uninvited guest hovering just behind her chair. That day, the conversation is different. You talk about futures, not just stories. She mentions a job offer in another city. Far. A place where it never rains. You make a joke. Is that even legal? And she laughs, but not the way she used to. Her laughter now has punctuation. An ending. She tells you she used to think that if she ever really fell in love again, she wouldn't know what to do with it. Like being handed a delicate glass bird, she says. Beautiful, but terrifying to hold. You think about telling her you'd be careful with that bird. That you'd build it a nest. But instead, you trace a drop of condensation down your glass and say, I never know when I'm in the middle of something that matters. Not until it's already ending. She looks at you for a long time after that. That's the first time. You both stay past the rain, or in this case, past nothing at all. The sun's still up when you leave. And still, you walk side by side. No umbrellas. No excuses. On the street, she tells you she doesn't usually like goodbyes. They're too performative, she says. Like theater. You never know if you're acting or actually sad. You say, I don't like them because they usually mean too little or too much. Then she stops. Right there. In the middle of the sidewalk, you stop too, and for the first time, you realize she's always smelled like rosemary and ink. Familiar and faint. You never noticed until you stopped breathing for a second too long. She doesn't move. She just looks at you. Blinks once, then she says, what would happen if I gave you my number? And that question splits you because you don't know what this is outside the rain, outside the ritual, outside the foggy windows and bottomless mugs and notebook margins filled with dreams that don't survive daylight. So you say, I don't know. She nods. Me neither. Then she walks away. No flair. No drama. Just leaves you there with the scent of rosemary and 1,000 what-ifs buzzing like bees in your chest. You spend the next week replaying that moment. It's a strange kind of ache, wanting something and fearing it at the same time. Like holding a snowflake too long and watching it melt. Did you know that during the 19th century, people used to send each other lovers' eyes, miniature paintings of just a single eye, torn from context, given to someone you couldn't publicly love? One gaze. That's all. No names. No confessions. Just a single, painted secret. You wonder if this is your version of that. These meetings. These silences. A week passes. Then too. No rain. No her, until one evening, when thunder grumbles in the distance and you feel something open in your chest. Like an old book, you don't even think about it. You just go, and she's there. Of course she is. Wearing that coat with the frayed cuff and that look like she's been holding her breath. This time, you don't sit, you walk straight to her and say, I don't want your number. She tilts her head, surprised. I want your Tuesday afternoons. You say, your rain jokes. Your strange stories. I want this. And she smiles, the real one. The one without punctuation. She says, I was hoping you'd say something. You don't kiss. That would be too simple. Too soon. Instead, she scoots her chair closer. Close enough that your knees touch. And that feels louder than any kiss. Could. You spend the next hour making a list of things neither of you has told the other. Favorite constellation. Most embarrassing dream. The one food you'd eat if you could only choose one for the rest of your life. Potatoes. For both of you. You laugh like children. You leave together again. The rain is gentler this time, like the sky knows not to intrude too much. Before she turns the corner, she says, next week. You nod. Always. And for a while, it stays. That simple. Rains come. You meet. Stories are shared. Touches are lighter, longer. The gaps between words grow smaller, and yet, still, you never meet outside the cafe, because sometimes, the boundaries are what keep the magic from leaking out. Still, you wonder, what would happen if you broke the rules again? One day, the rain doesn't come, but you do anyway. You tell yourself it's a test. Maybe she'll be there, maybe she won't. Maybe the magic isn't weatherbound after all. Maybe it's both of you, holding this strange rhythm between your Palms like a snow globe, tip it slightly and the whole storm begins again. You sit alone for 20 minutes, the waitress asks if she's joining you. You blink, unsure whether to say yes or no, but then, just as you're ready to surrender to that lonely clink of your spoon against your mug, she walks in. No umbrella. No explanation. Just that same slight smile that says, "I thought of you, too." She slides into the seat across from you, shrugs her damp coat onto the back of her chair, and says, "I was halfway here before I realized the forecast was a lie." You grin. Maybe it's just raining somewhere else. Maybe we're on borrowed rain. She likes that. You can tell by the way her lips press together, like she's holding in the echo of a thought. Borrowed rain, she repeats, almost to herself. This time, you tell her your name. She doesn't say hers right away. Instead, she says, "What if I keep being her for just a little longer?" You nod. "I like her." Later, she writes something in her notebook and slides it across the table. You peek. It's a sketch of you, rough, simple lines, but it catches your posture, your sideways smile, the curl of your hand around the mug's handle. "I draw people I want to remember," she says, sipping from her tea. "In case they forget me first." You don't say anything. You just lean forward and touch her hand. The brush of your fingers is soft, like testing the edge of a dream. She doesn't pull away. Did you know that in Icelandic folklore, people used to carve runes onto stones and place them near their front doors, not for protection, but so that travelers passing by would fall a little in love with the home inside? Not with the people. Just the feeling. She tells you this as you both watch the steam from your drink swirl into ghost shapes. "Maybe we're just passing through each other," she says. "Just long enough to remember what it feels like." You tell her you hope. She carves runes into her skin, then. That way, maybe someone will fall in love with how she feels to be around. She blushes. The next week, she's not there. The rain comes hard and fast. You sit at the table for nearly 2 hours, listening to the downpour thrum against the windows like fingers drumming on a heart. She doesn't come the next week either, nor the one after that. No number. No address. Nothing. And here's the thing about rituals: once they break, every repetition becomes a question. You show up anyway. Every time it rains. You order tea. You sit by the window. You talk to the empty chair like maybe she's still listening. One day, you bring your own notebook. You write her a letter. "Dear you," it begins. "I still don't know your name." Maybe that's for the best. Maybe names give things edges, and I don't want this to end at the edges. You write about the cafe. About the way the rain sounds lonelier now. About the way the waitress looks at you with quiet pity. About how you keep dreaming of rosemary and the sound of ink scratching across paper. Then you tuck the letter under the sugar jar. Just in case. There's this study, quirky, but true, that found people are more likely to fall in love when they share a moment of danger, like crossing a wobbly bridge or surviving a scare. Psychologists call it misattribution of arousal. But maybe, you think, there's another version. The bridge doesn't have to shake. The heart just has to. And rain, soft, relentless, invisible, has always been your version of a shaking bridge. One day, you walk into the cafe and someone else is sitting at the table. A tourist, maybe, taking pictures of their cappuccino like it's an artifact. You feel a small, unreasonable grief about it. You sit at the bar that day. The barista gives you a note.no envelope. Just paper, folded and worn. You recognize the handwriting immediately. Looping. Angular. Yours, if it had learned to sing. Borrowed rain, it says. What a lovely thing. If I never see you again, I hope you'll remember. Some stories are worth living even if they never finish. That's all. You look up. The barista shrugs. She left it a few weeks ago. Said you might come. And your chest cracks a little, in that quiet, clean way. Like the sound of ice breaking on a lake no one is watching. You don't know where she went. Maybe the job. Maybe a new city with no rain, no cafes, no borrowed tables for two. Or maybe she's sitting in a new place right now, watching fog climb windows and wondering if you're still out there, chasing ghosts. You go home and sit in silence for a while. The kind of silence that hums. Then you open your notebook. You start writing again. You write as if she's reading. Every page is a room she might walk into someday, and still, every time it rains, you go back, just in case. The rain becomes ritual again. But this time, it's only yours. You still go to Rue de Lune. The waitstaff changes. The baristas change. The lighting shifts slightly over the seasons, softer in autumn, more golden in late spring. But you remain. Your table is often taken now, and you don't mind. You sit wherever there's space and write letters to a woman with no name, no address, and no certainty. Sometimes, you reread your old letters to her, though you've never sent a single one. They live in your notebook like unsent prayers. Your friends ask questions. Is this person real? Are you still hung up on her? Was she just a phase? You laugh, gently, because it's always easier to let people misunderstand something they weren't part of. You tell them it's not about being stuck. It's about remembering how it felt to be unfolded. To be opened slowly by someone who asked nothing more than your presence, and you think, maybe some people are just meant to teach you your own softness. There's a Saturday when you're walking home and you pass an art gallery. The poster out front says, "Small eyes, big feelings, sketches of the unsaid." It's raining. Of course it is. You go in, the space smells like wet wool and varnish. It's dim and echoey, like every footstep is a secret trying to get out. There, on the back wall, is a series of tiny portraits. Not full faces. Just fragments, hands holding mugs, eyes caught mid-laugh, the curve of a wrist resting on a cafe table, and then, you see it, your own posture. Your hand. That exact slant of your shoulders when you're pretending not to care. It's you, sketched in soft charcoal and watercolor, titled, "Borrowed Rain No. 4, You stand frozen." Then lean in. And there, tucked beside the frame, is a tiny tag with an artist's name, her name. It feels like someone whispered into your spine. She's real. She remembered. She turned you into something she could carry. Into something someone else might someday love, even without knowing who you are. The curator notices your stillness and comes over. She doesn't do shows often, he says. Travels. A lot. But these are from one place. A cafe in Paris, I think. She wrote something in the catalog about ephemeral intimacy. Kind of poetic, really. You don't cry. But your hands shake just a little. Afterwards, you walk home. Slower than usual. Letting the rain soak into your collar, your shoes, your bones. You feel full. Not whole, but full. You go home. Open the notebook. Start a new letter. "Dear you, I found you. And in finding you again, I realized I never really lost you. You've been living in the quiet things. In the weight of cups. In the shapes of pauses. In the thunder that rolls just before a word is spoken." You write until your hand aches. That night, you dream of her. Not a memory this time, something new. She's standing on a train platform, wearing a coat too thin for the weather, sketching the clouds. You wave. She smiles like she's been waiting. When you wake up, it's not raining. The sky is bright. And loud and ordinary. Still, you walk to the cafe, sit at your usual table. Open your notebook. The pages smell faintly of ink and damp paper. The waitress brings your drink without asking, and then you do something different. You pull out a postcard. Blank, plain. Write just a single line. "Thank you for teaching me that some love doesn't need to stay to be real." You leave it on the table. With her name, maybe she'll come back. Maybe someone else will pick it up and wonder, maybe that's the point. Have you ever heard of the Japanese concept of kintsugi? It's the art of mending broken pottery with gold, making the cracks not just visible but beautiful, a celebration of having been broken and then held. You think, this was your kintsugi. A quiet, soft love that fractured you, not from hurt, but from expansion. She stretched the walls of your world. And now that she's gone, there's more sky inside you than there used to be, more rain. A month later, you receive a letter. No return address. Just a sketch of a bird on the envelope, that same delicate glass bird she once mentioned. Inside, 2 lines, still sketching storms. Still thinking of you. No signature. No date. Just that. You smile. You don't try to find her. You don't reply, because this, too, is a kind of presence. A kind of love. You stop counting how many times you go back to Rue de Lune. It becomes less about waiting, and more about returning. You don't bring hope with you anymore, not the kind that clutches or longs. What you carry now is a kind of hush, a reverent silence, like when you walk into a room where someone once sang, and in a way, she still does. Your ritual softens. Some days, you don't write. You just watch. The rain on the windows. The couples huddled in corners. The old man who sketches. Birds in blue pen. You've started learning their rhythms too, the background poetry of a life shared with strangers. You talk to the waitress now, a new one, younger, who reads romance novels tucked under the counter and has a laugh that bubbles like seltzer water. She tells you about her boyfriend, how he makes her tea even when they fight. You smile and say, "That's love." You still write letters to her sometimes. Not every time. But enough. They've changed. They're not desperate or aching. They're like postcards from a city inside you that still smells like her rosemary scarf. One of them reads, "You once said the rain felt like someone whispering too close. I still listen for it. I think you were my echo before I even knew the shape of my voice." You fold that one into your coat pocket. Carry it for weeks. Never send it. Some things, after all, are meant to live in the crease between saying and keeping. You begin noticing other moments of borrowed love around you. A woman wiping lipstick off her teeth while her partner smiles, unbothered. A child pressing their mother's hand to their cheek in a grocery line. A man fixing the cuff of his husband's sleeve just before they cross the street. You start sketching, too, not with charcoal or watercolors, but with words. Vignettes. Fragments. Emotional outlines of things that pass too quickly to hold but linger anyway. One night, unable to sleep, you read a study about dreams. It says we forget 90% of them within the first 10 minutes of waking. But the dreams that leave feelings instead of stories? Those last. We carry them like perfume on a scarf, maybe that's what she was. A feeling that outlived the dream. You wonder if she ever came back to the cafe and sat where you once did. You wonder if she asked the barista for tea, leaned her elbows on the windowsill, and stared out at the quiet rain, thinking of someone who taught her how to stay soft in a world that wants you to harden. You hope so. You find yourself talking about her, sometimes, to people who'll never meet her. Not by name, she doesn't have one in your stories. She's just the rain girl, or the sketcher, or her. You watch their eyes soften when you do, because love like this? It's not only yours. It echoes, and on a quiet Tuesday evening, something shifts. You leave Rue de Lune and instead of going home, you walk to the bridge. The same one where the street musicians gather. The river below hums, steady and dark. You stand there for a while, then take the postcard you've been carrying and toss it into the water. Not to lose it, but to let it live somewhere else now that there's a calm in your chest that wasn't there before. Not an absence. A presence. You've learned something, that love doesn't always need closure, sometimes, it just needs to be witnessed, and you did. You were there. You showed up. Again and again. You were the cup. She was the pour. And in that brief window of time, you both overflowed. There's an old proverb, Arabic, maybe, or Persian, depending who you ask, that says, "You will not find me where I left you, for I live now in the spaces between." You breathe it like a benediction, and then, you walk home, not waiting, not chasing, just carrying.